All right, it is 7:02, September 4th. I want to go ahead and call to order the Citizens Advisory Committee. Can we get roll call, please?
All right. Committee Member Knight?
Present.
Committee Member Kester?
Here.
Chair Harrington?
Here.
Committee Member Minkoff?
Yeah.
Committee Member Terrell?
Here.
Vice Chair Barney?
Here.
Committee Member Castillo-White?
Here.
Committee Member Rizzo?
Here.
Committee Member Stephenson?
Here.
Committee Member Stevens?
Here.
Committee Member Sunderland?
Here.
Perfect, thank you. Do you want to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now I'm going to open it up for public comments on any non-agenda items. Yes,
Can I do that as a committee member, do public comment as well?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure. So really quick.
State your name and city you're from.
Okay. Frank Stevens, Troutdale, Oregon. That'll help with the listening in too. So I've been helping out Metro informally with a bike and ped count on the new Troutdale Trail that goes up around the loop on, it goes all the way to Sundown, now it goes all the way to Chinook Landing, which connects to Blue Lake. It's an awesome 3-mile trail. If you have a chance, check it out. But along with that, I wanted to see all the way down to Harlow and then where it connects to I-84, and then potentially where it connects to the new, this fall, is it this fall that we're doing the bid? The bid's already done for the Sandy River Trail?
The bid is completed, and I believe an offer has been sent.
Right, so we're gonna start construction on a trail that's gonna connect us to the visitor center in downtown Troutdale with the same type of path, so it's gonna be 10 feet wide. So in the midst of all this, while I was doing this and talking to city maintenance, they put in some great doggy bag dispensers and stuff like that. We had cars that were cruising onto the path repeatedly. And then the other night, I almost got hit by a car coming over I-84 as I was going down the route. So from a jurisdictional standpoint, it's not actually Troutdale, it's actually ODOT, if I remember right. But it's so close to where we're gonna be building, and all we're missing is a bollard, basically. So I reported it to the police, and then I checked out the other side, on the Troutdale side, and that bollard's missing as well. So then I did some research and found out that our city manager, Ray Young, last August had reported a large number of vehicles using that path basically as a road on the Jordan Road side, which is over by the Delta, Sandy River Delta.
Also, I think we'll map it, but
Can we?
Can you?
Great.
yeah,
Yeah,
it took me a while to figure it out earlier, so.
yeah, and it gives you the visual. So that basically was an increase, but what I'm seeing is not only an increase in the potential house list, we're seeing an increase in recreational. So most of the people I'm talking to are like fishermen, people that have lost their dogs, and they just come onto the trail and they're like, well, it was paved, and it's like, yeah, but it's a shared use path, it's not an actual. So my question or concern potentially in the future is, as we build the Sandy River Trail, which connects us to downtown Troutdale, what can we do to deter that, either, and look at it from 3 aspects: engineering, education, and enforcement. And how can we apply those to make sure that we don't have that same issue on this side of the river? Do you see where I'm going?
Mm.
Yeah. And that's gonna have coordination with other agencies too, but yeah.
I take it up with parks too, I mean, it's,
Yeah, so I mean, that's why I'm bringing it up, because I think it's a great topic for the CAC and branching out from there, so.
I have a question, so
Yes, sir.
bollard, is that the post that would block somebody from driving on the path?
Yeah, when I spoke to Officer Stevens, not related, well, maybe distant, but he said that typically, there's a steel bollard there with a lock on it, but like anyone with lock cutters, you can basically cut the lock and take the bollard. So most of the summer, those bollards have been missing. And I also talked to ODRD, Oregon Department of Recreation, ORDP, and so they're responsible for the other side. And I sent them an email and said, hey, when are you guys thinking of replacing the bollard? And they go, well, when we can afford it. So it's, yeah. So that hasn't happened yet either. So in the interim, I did some quick counts, and just yesterday I had 3 cars taking that turn and using that road. So, and that was within a 4-hour period. So, yeah.
All right, and these weren't like parks vehicles or anything
No.
like that? They're just regular Joe Blow, just,
Yeah, I gave everything to Officer Stevens and gave him the ID plates and the type of vehicle. Yeah, and actually I had pictures on my phone. In fact, there were a few choice words yelled at me by one of the drivers as he went by me.
Is this
on the
example of where that's showing?
Yeah, so that's on the actual Gordon Road, Jordan Road, as it goes underneath.
Yeah.
And you're gonna see that trail continue where it used to be, if you go around that corner. That ODOT actually has a capital project that's gonna make that paved all the way to Sandy River Delta. That's
Oh,
already
that's gonna
approved. So,
so that would keep the vehicles coming from the Sandy River Delta Park,
yeah.
traveling through that.
So if you go back, that bollard, if you go back through those tunnels, on your right, you'll come up to a emergency access point right across from where you come off the highway. Keep going. Keep going, keep going. Right there. See that opening right there?
Yep.
See how there's a bollard right there?
Right,
Now imagine that gone. And that's what it's been like all summer.
The driveway, right?
And they drive right into it and go right down to the Sandy River. Yeah. And
so
this is from last year too.
So ODOT has the lock and key to that, and they use it for maintenance, or?
No, so the lock and key actually is Multnomah County Sheriff's Department.
Okay.
And they also have like extra keys for fire. They have keys for Metro Rid, who goes in and picks up trash for illegal dumping. So there's an assortment of people that can have access, but should have access, exactly.
Okay, and then on the other side?
Yeah, Dakota, you're really good at this.
yes.
Yeah,
So I remember seeing,
if you go to the other side on 257, right there at that opening. Yeah. Now see that bollard on the right? That's gone.
there's several.
So as I was standing off to the right, talking to 2 maintenance trucks from Troutdale, a car cruised back past us at like 50 miles an hour, caught air going over that hump, and kept going straight, and then hung a left, went under I-84 and kicked up to Harlow Road. Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
What about the other side, the north side, by is it the plumbing company or the foundry?
On which side? Are you talking about the,
Right there.
right there, so that's where it kicks out.
Is there another bollard there?
There is, yeah. So the dilemma, and this is something we need to, we could look at design, is there's only one bollard, and I could fit my car around it pretty easily. So it's a deterrent, but it's not, yeah. And the same applies to all of,
barn now, okay.
yeah, and if you look at the new Chop Chop Trail, all of those trailheads only have one bollard, and stones that are so far apart, I could drive pretty easily onto that.
I wonder if there's like other mechanized vehicles, like dirt bikes or motorcycles.
I've had 2 motorcycles out there, and yesterday I had 1 motorcycle.
And that isn't fine, right? You're not supposed to do that.
It's all illegal. In fact, Ray Young was on the committee that made sure the state land board that owns that property made it illegal. So, yeah.
Do they seem to be recreating, or are they accessing, I know down in some of those areas, there's people
So,
living?
this is just my observation, and
Yeah.
I'm not an expert. But I would say it's 50-50. So 50% are just driving down to the beach because they don't want to walk and they don't want to park. And honestly, parking on that side in the summer, I had 5,000 movements on Troutdale Bridge. That's a lot in one day. So that's the summertime, that was July 4th. And then the other 50%, I would say, is supply for the homeless over in Sandy River Delta. which is what Ray Young addressed last year. So that was really the high point. But what I'm seeing adds on to what the work that he did, and that actually expands to, now it's coming over to our side, and it's also getting onto our other trails. Do you see where I'm going?
Mm-hmm.
And it's becoming recreational, so.
Is there a bollard on the other side of this underpass here?
No, it's open.
So that's where the other picture shows where those four were.
Yeah,
That's the
that's on the
that's the
opposite,
entrance.
and you hang a right, yeah.
Oh.
This is my running route. So I run down the hill, take the golf course, or not, the Frisbee golf course, and then run the dirt trail, and then underneath, and then over to the trout track. Pretty much every day, that's kind of my run with my dogs. So it's something to think about, yeah.
No, great point. I think one of the things that seems to be pretty glaringly lacking is signage and striping. I think just a sign that said trespassing $5,000 fine or motor vehicle might stop a lot of that. But with it being open and it looks like a road and it's got a transition and no signage, it's like, well, I'm playing dumb here, I'm just gonna drive.
Yeah,
Well,
I had that with a father and two kids who were looking basically for a shorter way to get to the river, and I'm like, come on, man, come on, it's not. I'm not gonna confront anybody, but the guy that was coming at me at 30 plus miles an hour while I'm on my bike is like, no, man, not cool, And then, as I'm doing this observations, I'm looking at people walking at the same time as these guys are driving. So I'm amazed no one's been hit. Yeah, it's something we gotta keep an eye on, for sure. I think it'll slow down now that we're getting out of the summer, going into the fall. Future planning for our Sandy River Trail that connects to Troutdale.
Yeah, that's a really good point, is to think of some of those things that we can be proactive about.
And Officer Stevens actually mentioned, like, why don't we put in a gate rather than bollards? Or let's do better signage with, and he brought that up too. And I think they should be part of the team that works on this too. So, I mean, they're the ones who use it the most.
And there's more expensive bollards that you can use too that are not padlocked, that you can't just take off with a bolt cutter.
Yeah, I'm not a
But
bollard expert.
and that turns into a budget problem, but
Yeah,
I mean, there's engineering ways around it.
yeah.
If I could expand upon that overall theme of the trail system and the connection of the Springwater Trail, the 40-mile loop. The connection has been made to, I believe, Mountain Community College, and now the connection is being made to the depot. The missing connection now that is kind of the one that's being debated and is going to be probably something that we're going to face in the somewhat, not too distant future, is how we connect those two.
The depot. Oh, you mean the depot?
Yeah,
Here.
right down here.
Yeah, the train.
Yeah, the train depot. So, that from Chinook Landings all the way into Troutdale, and then it comes around to, I think it's Mount Hood, I believe.
Yeah.
But there's that connection between those two, and that's been a really hotly contested topic of how that's done. There was a, original, not to get too deep in this because it'll probably come up in the future, but Metro came and said, hey, we want to put Springwater Trail through Troutdale right next to the brand new school that we built. And then that got extended. During that meeting, it was a massive blow up. Hundreds of people showed up. Absolutely not. Metro was like, oh, wow, you guys really don't want this, so we're backing out. Since then, there has been, I believe, in my opinion, some back channel ways to try to include that into the town center plan, as well as the transportation plan to close Sandy, which is from 3rd Street going up and around behind the school.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's great. I think where the conversation needs to be continued is, since there was such a, anti, Springwater Trail and going next to the school and through Troutdale, what is that conversation going to be, and how much are we going to have as far as Troutdale citizens in planning that route? And I think it's something that we should really be aware of as those talks happen. On the 40-mile loop, they still have on their website that they're working to close Sandy there to one-way traffic, I believe.
Can you show us where that is on the map? That's what I was gonna ask, are you speaking that it stops at Mount Hope Community and then there's a gap between that and
Yeah, I
I
believe,
can speak a little bit to that. Just heard that Multnomah County is putting in for the Oregon Paths grant to continue the trail west of Troutdale Road, east of Community College for about, I think it's 1.4 to 1.6 miles. And go in and put the trail in through this section. It's also going to impact Beaver Creek, so they're going to do a culvert, a larger culvert, fix the culvert in that area so they can use the trail over that culvert, over Beaver Creek, and continue it as north to the depot.
so we'll go through the woods then, is what you're saying?
Yeah,
Okay.
at least that's where they're thinking for right now. They're just now submitting a letter of intent.
Okay.
So depending on if they receive the funding for that grant, then that would, that starts the ball rolling of, public engagement, community engagement, that's all part of the grant process.
Yeah.
They have to do all those things. So if they receive the grant, then there'll be more information to come about different, community engagement meetings and discussion, and things of that nature.
Do they have a graphic for, I'm trying to picture it going through that area.
It's very early stages.
Okay.
If they get it received, then they have to go out for the community engagement, get feedback, and then RFP for contractors, and then that's where the designs will come, and so on. So it's much further down the road. Typically, a project like that can be anywhere from a year to 3 years, depending on what their time frame is.
I'm sorry, can I?
Oh, yes, please.
Brett Stevens for the guys that are on. So I think that's gonna come up when we do the comprehensive plan, like you said. So we're gonna have input on, I mean, if you're looking at Sandy Road, which I love taking, my kids took it to school. That's a perfect spot for what would be considered a greenway or bike boulevard. Doesn't that kind of correspond with the whole concept of the 40 mile loop, just connecting parks and schools? I'm confused. I thought 40 mile loop was all about connecting parks and schools.
Right. I guess my point is not necessarily about the function of it, but more or less what the citizens of Troutdale feel about that connection going next to the brand new school.
Okay. So
Because we all know the
so-
current status being curated on the 40 mile loop is great, for people that can whiz by it and go park their bike at home in West Lynn or wherever. But the communities where they're at are affected greatly. And I think the conversation some years ago really showed that there was a lot of sentiment against connecting that trail through the downtown.
Personally, I would
And
not
so
like to see a path through Beaver Creek. That's just a bad idea.
And I think that's more just me saying, hey, we need more discussion rather than just throwing it in there, back channeling it into these documents to then close the road in the future.
Yeah.
Because the way it was thrown in, there was a geotechnical report that was used, and I don't believe that the answers that the engineers gave were the ones that the city plant staff was pushing in those documents, and so it kind of came to a head and was removed at that point. So I don't want to get too deep into it. I'm just saying, hey, this is something that in the past the community has had a strong opinion about. And so as these connections are eventually going to be built, I just want to make sure the citizens have a say in that process.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think looking at connecting schools and parks would be good for us. So, yeah.
And maybe Dakota, if you hear more, or they have a website or something that we could resource, that might be something we could keep updating on and keep it on the agenda just so that we have that discussion and can invite the public to come and know about what's happening also. Great, good discussion. All right, we're gonna go ahead and move on to review and approval of yes, it is September already, huh? 7th minutes. Everybody have a chance to look those over?
I'll make a motion to approve. Second.
Everybody in favor?
Aye.
All right, let's go ahead and move. And then, I don't think we did any other public comment. I'm jumping back and forth. I didn't see Mr. Wilcox on today, so I don't see anybody out there. Good. So we will go ahead and move on to item number 4, discussion, and focusing back in on our committee role and our next steps. And I think last time we had talked about Adrian maybe putting together a presentation, and then our next step would be looking at that and then bringing it to Ray Young, just to
Yep.
get his feedback.
So, I can show people what I have. I realized about a week ago that I couldn't remember if any specific person had actually been tasked with putting together a PowerPoint presentation on this, so I did it anyway.
Thank you.
So, particularly for people online, you can see my screen.
So can I ask, are we gonna review this here in this meeting, or?
Yeah, I think that's sort of the intent next step, just to make sure I'm not completely off base of anything that I put in this. Just to sort of preface this, the text here is exactly the text that you all have seen.
Can you share an electronic version of this too?
Yes, I will email to Dakota, and that will get out to everybody. But the text is essentially everything that went in the Word document that went out, with a couple extra sort of explanatory notes. But other than that, it's pretty much exactly the same thing, just in a PowerPoint format. To start out with, I kind of gave a little bit of notes on sort of what kicked this whole thing off. In that there was some questions about whether or not, about the mechanics of how we take inputs from the public and send it to city council. Those initial questions were answered pretty solidly, but during that, the question of, well, what else do we do, came up. So that's where we ended up.
And, sorry, and have you run this by Ray Young as well?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. That's gonna be after this, once the committee as a whole tells me that, or which parts of this are completely bonkers. So the inputs for this is, we had input from staff, primarily Ray Young. And then the University of Oregon guide, and then some CAC examples from a couple other municipalities. I couldn't remember exactly which ones we looked at. I think West Lynn was one of them, and I don't remember what there was at least one other, but I couldn't remember exactly which one. And then my formatting notes, because I kept those the same. In here, adding the italics bit, basically that's my explanatory stuff for people who are reading this outside of the meeting. And then it's just going through the sections, just as we have done. I don't need to read all of this because we've been through it. You see on this slide, the italicized note basically saying that the liaison language is not new. It's moved and sort of added onto. The section B, I added the note in here basically saying that the intent of the statement is to ensure citizen involvement early in the planning process. And I wanted to make that clear because I know there's been comments that I have heard mostly from a couple members of in and around the Planning Commission, where they say very validly that we exceed many of the state minimums as far as citizen notification for applications and hearings and that kind of thing. And I think more of the intent of what we want to do is getting citizen involvement well before the hearing portion of it, which is the end of the process. And these are the kinds of comments that I want to make sure as a committee that, we sort of validate that I'm not off base here. The rest of section B is again, not very much new language. The only new language here is basically some clarification on what potentially initiates reviews. The section C bit here, we brought this up at last month's meeting. This was the section that Paul Wilcox found in the development code regarding the review of concept development plans. So I tucked that in here as well. That's almost a word for word transfer from the development code. And the rest of the document is basically unchanged.
That looks wonderful. One slide I went by just a little
Which
too quick. It talked about the report.
Let's see, you want, let's see, this one, which is the very beginning of it.
Ooh, I think it was another one. Are you able to go forward? Sorry.
Yep, it's fine.
Second.
Might be the next.
Yes, I think got that. To that end. Yes, I'm just trying to anticipate questions that might come up when we report to Ray Young and then the city council. And so what are you guys' thoughts on what that report might be, or the process for that? So the CAC will generate a report communicating such to the council or other appropriate council sanctioned committees. Would that just be like the minutes of our discussion and
Yeah,
forwarding that on?
or even just a statement that where at least my thought, and obviously other opinions are welcome. My thought is, say for example, somebody comes to CAC with a pressing issue. And we discuss it, and we agree, yes, this is a pressing issue that should go in front of, say, Planning Commission. So then we can either write something up, send an email to the chair of Planning Commission and say, hey, this was brought to us, we're letting you know, and this is our opinion on the subject. Or we can do that and possibly a representative of the committee go to the next Planning Commission meeting and do the same thing. Same thing goes for city council.
I mean, by leaving it more vague, it then leaves up to the committee to.
Yeah, I mean, what form that report takes is kind of left intentionally vague as it's kind of situational. Yep.
So that doesn't alleviate, even if we disagree about with the individual that brings the topic to us, that doesn't stop them from going to Planning Commission?
Not one bit, because those are all public meetings.
Yeah, so those are all still forums.
Yeah, absolutely. If said individual completely disagrees with the whole committee's take on what they brought to us, they can absolutely go separately.
So are you thinking like we would do kind of a group think with brainstorming on the topic and then provide that material?
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
depends on the issue.
it really depends on the issue.
Yeah.
Because it may just be something where just the fact that we're bringing it to city council gives it a little bit more of an emphasis. I mean, it's something that is being brought to their attention by the CAC, not, and I don't mean to like diminish this at all, because public and individual input is important, but it's being brought by the committee and not only an individual.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
During
I think
public
it's a great
comment.
idea. Yeah.
And I guess I was thinking about that as well, and in addition to the report, I'm
sure it's already on our minds, but I think it would be good to recommend to the individual that they go to whatever group we're suggesting it go before when we have a matter that we think should go before one of the other groups.
Yeah.
I can think of a specific example where we went to city council with something, if that's what we're looking for, is sort of a baseline. With our agendas here and public comment, some years ago, this group brought up, hey, we don't like the way public comment's being handled at city council. We want this to change. So the group got together, wrote the new rules that they wanted, and it went and presented it to council. So, hey, this is from our group. We want you guys to take this seriously. I think some of the reason and initially why we wanted to rewrite this is because that initial response was basically like, oh yeah, okay, we'll get to it whenever. So like 9-10 months go by and we're like, whatever happened, let's go back. So we had to go back to council and say, hey, we brought this to you. It's serious to us. We really want you to pay attention. And that's when we realized, well, there's no real mechanism for us to bring anything to council. It's only one way. They send it to us. And then generally what it's been is like, as an individual, we would go in and say, I'm representing the CAC, or like, I'm a member of the CAC, this is what we talked about, this is what we want to have happen, versus an actual like mechanism for this group to bring something of import to council, and then they actually look at it, review it, and take it seriously.
Shelby Stephenson. I was gonna say, this is what we did on public safety recently. We were alarmed. I think that's what our role is, citizen advisory. So when we know or find out about something that's concerning our community, I think we should go to city council or go to the appropriate, if it's the planning commission or whatever, and go with a voice. If we feel strongly as a committee, if we don't collectively agree, okay, then no, but you can go individually. But I think that's our role, yeah.
Yeah, and from when we had Ray Young here, basically asking that question of, can we take things to council? And Ray was like, yeah, of course you can. This, I think, puts it on paper a little more strongly. At least, I mean, that's kind of my feeling on it.
Yes.
Diane. Another important thing, because I was involved with that, I think Paul and me might have presented, and I don't know if you did as well. But the thing about it too, that it's important to remember, just as a tip, is once you do that, and the council does take it seriously and they take it on, they will revise and interpret and add on or take away whatever they see. So something has to be continually followed. Because one of the things they did during that process, they included that nobody could say, when you do public comment, you couldn't say anything personally about any individual. At that time, there was some not nice behavior happening at council chambers. And so I brought up the point, well, Paul Woodcock's just came up here and was telling Dave Britnell what a great job he did. Don't quote me, Paul, but this is my recollection. But the good job he did, I think he was chairing the meeting or such. And I said, okay, so that was a good comment. So you're just saying that you're going to monitor bad comments. But then it's up to your interpretation. So then we basically couldn't bring up anything on any individual. So, and then even when you do that, then later on, I'm just saying you have to keep following things. Yeah. We also discussed chickens. And at the time, I was part of that discussion, and I wanted to make it easier during COVID and such. A mother came up and said she had X amount of children, couldn't get any eggs, and then she wanted to be able to provide eggs. So we looked at Gershon and we came up with a solution. Later on, when it went to council, I don't know if any of us followed it. I think, yes, I did. Okay, but the penalty was set at almost $1,000. Now I don't know if that was our intent. So my cautionary tale is, as we want to follow through, we heard the petition from the young lady, and then we made some choices, we did some research. It's always good to keep following up and see if that was the intent. And at this point too, I haven't looked it up, so one individual said he didn't do it because it was cumbersome, but I haven't checked that out, so I don't know if you have to do a plan. It might have been more burdensome than we had envisioned, but I'm just saying, when you come up with something, it's just good to follow through and see if that meant intent and motive, because a lot of times the city manager or the councilors may not have a chance to review our meetings and hear what we were discussing so they can understand what the actual intent was.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that, by trying to put in here that, we're actually giving reports and direct communication to council, with our findings. I think that'll help with both the importance of it and also sort of get the rolling for the follow-up. But also that last point, I think, is critically important, is that part of our job in citizen involvement is making sure that the information goes both ways. Is that when we take an issue from the public and send it to city council, that we are also instrumental in sending back to that individual or to that association what actions are, or in some cases are not, taken based on their concerns. And that need for feedback will also impress the importance of follow-up, because inevitably we're going to need to follow up so that we know what to tell the person actually happened.
Well, any other feedback on the presentation? Yes.
Do we go back one slide? One more.
I have to go the right direction.
Oh, there we go, okay. So I feel like this is something we discussed before when we had this text in written form, but I wanted to clarify. So on that one slide, you said the bold stuff is new text that we recommend.
Yes.
The underlying stuff is what the code currently says, and the italics are notes on the text. But what does text, like that top bullet point, mean? It's just not bold italicized.
Okay, so text that is essentially unformatted is text that exists in its original location and for all practical purposes unchanged.
Okay, so the
Underlined text is something that is existing language but moved, shifted around a bit. Yep, nope, common question.
Did I see another hand over here? Oh, Will, yes.
Actually, on that page there, the review suggests that we will just meet with other council sanctioned committees to gather information and get their perspective. Is that the only question for the group? Is that the only thing that we want to do for the review, or are there more comprehensive things that we could look at? One of the things that comes to mind is, what are the ways that we communicate? Is it appropriate to get information from who handles the social media accounts and websites to see if those are having any sort of effect? Is there information regarding how many calls are coming in on a certain project to the planner? Like, what are the data that we can drive?
That might be the last bullet.
Yeah, that's largely what the last bullet point
Thank
is.
you, I missed that.
Is essentially, that's where we get input from staff.
Thank you.
Everything, all the wonderful stuff they're doing.
Go Trail. My question is more of an operational control of that whole, how do we measure that it's being completed? And do we, what would be something that demonstrates completeness?
Mhm.
So, one thing is to kind of say we're gonna do this, but it's like, how do we measure we're doing this?
That
What's
might
the
be.
end result? What's that performance metric that we can use in our dashboard of when we're reporting out on what we did?
Of what specifically?
The last.
Oh, basically the metrics. So, this is, so,
Hold on, let me.
yep, go ahead.
So you're saying, like, metrics that we should follow, metrics from staff that we want to incorporate in something that we're discussing or forwarding on, or is it like metrics on our success as a advisory committee?
Well, we want to be able to measure when we review something from TCAP, or whatever, right? Then what's that metric? Do we have a meeting? Was there a results that we can use to, as an individual metric for the relationship review at TCAP? And then when we publish our dashboard, what is that going to show? Did we have success in 5 of 7 committees that we reviewed? Or did we get 0 of 7 committees reviewed? How do we get that metric? And how do we report out on what we've done?
That might be our next topic we work on, is
Yeah.
building out the system.
That,
You know,
Yeah.
essentially, my thought was essentially TBD. Because, those kinds of operational specifics is not a level of detail we want in municipal code. We want to say that we will talk to these people, we will gather these bits of information, but precisely what those are and what the benchmarks are is gonna be more of a moving target. So that's not gonna be specified, and again, this is my thoughts, and, because I'm in the middle of a whole bunch of bylaw review for another organization, and one of the pieces of advice that I got there is things like bylaws, and much of the same applies to municipal code, is you want them to be vague enough to give the group operational wiggle room to be able to implement however best works in the situation that they find themselves in. This is the framework that is giving us direction.
So it sounds like next steps then would be to take this to Ray and then see if we have feedback, and then address that, and then take it on to council, and then once we get the blessing and see if there are more feedback, we can develop that.
Yep.
What is this gonna look like? Yes,
I think there's
Woodrow?
one more layer of onion, right? We don't need to put down how many widgets they're gonna be making, or how many, what our throughput is. But we need to put down that we will be tracking widgets somehow, and we will be reporting out on widgets somehow.
Yeah.
I think that, we don't need to tell which of the metrics, but we need to say, we will be identifying the metrics that we receive from the other committees, and will be reporting out on the success or failure of what those activities are. We don't need to be specific like you talked about, but I think we need to say, we're gonna develop that. Otherwise, that's too much wiggle room in a policy document. You need to narrow it down from a 4-car garage down to at least a doorway. Otherwise, they're gonna leave it at a 4-car garage.
Was that that other bullet point? To me, that's kind of what I thought that.
Yeah,
was.
that's
So
sort of where
was
that key metrics comes in, because the key metrics that we are interested in is gonna change depending on what's available.
And the committees too.
And the committees,
You're absolutely
because to give a good example, like parks will have a very different set of mandates and a very different approach to citizen involvement than does planning commission. And the code, the development code and the municipal code is very land use heavy. So a lot of stuff kind of funnels in the direction of planning commission. But all of the committees, whether it's parks or PSEC or HLC or whatever, all have citizen involvement components that do different things, that are gonna have different metrics, and those metrics will change over time. So I think as long as we have commitment in the language here that all of the citizen committees are getting involved actively, from a process standpoint, it's gonna cover our bases.
Yes.
I mean, listening to the conversation, it sounds like all you need to add to that last sentence is outcomes. So citizen, where it says the matrix, key matrix related to citizen involvement, communication, and outcomes. And that gives you the wiggle room that you need, but it also means that we're gonna track what we're doing.
We got it down to two.
Yeah.
You see my point, though, right?
Oh, yeah,
I mean, so
absolutely.
we gotta kind of frame.
But I also understand Adrian's point of view where this is like zoning. If you get too tight, then you can't build anything, so.
Yeah. And yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Chris. Well, basically, the other thing I was gonna say is we may get to a point where some of the other city committees or citizen committees are doing a fantastic job with their own outreach and citizen involvement, where all we have to do is touch base and say, yes, you guys are doing a wonderful job. We don't really need to suggest anything. Have a nice day. It might take time, and that will vary from committee to committee. That will potentially vary from year to year, depending on the makeup of the committee and the situations that committee is thrown into. So yeah, and it's shooting for a friend.
Well, I think Chris was first.
Yep.
Okay, so two things, wanted to clarify, what did you mean by rigid?
From a manufacturing standpoint, back when I got this, whatever degree I had, they always just threw in a miscellaneous tool for us to produce a manufacturing tool. We always called them widgets. It could be a Chrysler or a Chevy, it could be a laptop. But that was just a generic term we use when we talk about production.
Fictional unit of output, yeah.
Yes.
I also was wondering if we could look at the title slide for a second.
Yeah, I had no idea what to properly put here, so a better title description I am absolutely down for.
I guess it's just the small words were a little weird to me at first, but now they don't sound as weird as they did at first. So I really saw that.
Maybe that will come to us,
Yeah,
yeah, as we
that,
prepare.
that was something I just pulled out of thin air because I wanted a subtitle.
So do we have a sense of how quickly we can review with Ray and then when to present to council?
I have not ever set up a meeting with Ray. I don't know if anybody has, I know Victoria, you've done that, and is it best to do that through email and then?
Yeah, just send him an email, and he usually sends you times and he's available.
Perfect. So maybe I'll send an email and then maybe you and I could
Yep.
meet with him and I can.
Yep, that's
know if
fine.
does that feel okay? And then we hopefully could report back by our next meeting.
Do you think we need to meet again, or is if there isn't much feedback, then just straight to city council?
It's gonna take a while to get on the agenda,
Yeah.
I think, for city council, so we'll probably meet again, and then I think the experience is like a couple months out, it usually is.
Ray can give you a tentative date.
Okay,
Yeah.
we'll put that on our agenda, meet with him also.
Do you have anything else, Chris?
Well, I have two things. Since the big part is just the name of our committee, what if we just call it like maybe description text review or something like that? Because it kind of just flows as one big battle.
Yep.
I would also just like to request that we not cut each other off.
Apologies.
No, you did.
I've been known to do that, so apologies anyway.
All right, well,
Could we go to the next slide, please? Just give me 1 sec here.
This is strictly background, and we could skip this
Yeah.
whole thing if
Well-
people thought it was superfluous.
No, actually, I was hoping to maybe add to that. I know that for me, it was a real light bulb moment when Ray came in and shared those documents with us and said, well, citizen involvement, what is this, you know? And so that's kind of what started. So maybe potentially including something that suggests that in light of the new information regarding the state statutes, that this made us kind of question whether or not things are set up correctly in Troutdale. And then that's why we're now including the review, like some sort of context to kind of bring that thread through, that it wasn't just we said, we want to do this.
Yeah.
It's like, no, the state statutes say that we're Troutdale supposed to do this. So we're accepting this role to our committee.
Yeah, I'll think about that.
I agree, that why is just so important. Yes.
Say it with stuff that people stuff.
Oh, here, please.
That'll give me a reminder to put something in there.
So just one little thing I was noticing on this slide, I hate to be that guy, but there's a word missing in the first bullet point. So it should be like mechanics of its interactions or something like that.
Oh,
I love
Twyla,
that. Oh, yes.
it's Kevin. Can you ask that question again? I didn't quite catch all of it. You're saying, why are we going through that? Why do we need to do this?
no, this was just, it was a question about wanting to add, it was Will wanting to add some text in the background slide about sort of what prompted the rabbit hole portion of the discussion in kind of the light bulb of what citizen involvement meant and where we could take that. So I'll add some text in the background slide regarding that.
Did you have thoughts on that, Kevin, or some proposed text?
Well, I don't know. I guess what popped into my head in terms of the rabbit hole is we've been in and out of the rabbit hole for quite a few months regarding this whole thing. But what I've been thinking lately is, without dancing around the rabbit hole or going in and out of the rabbit hole or whatever, as that metaphor may be, what else would we be doing? That I think is the reason why we're having these discussions, is to figure out, what are we supposed to be doing? What is it truly? I mean, in the beginning, again, not to beat a dead horse, but I can use all kinds of metaphors, rabbit holes and dead horses. First, it seemed to me that we were only supposed to be dealing with what City Council brought to us. And I heard it mentioned again, brought to us. And then we realized, no, that's not what Ray Young said. And it was reinforced. No, we're supposed to be bringing issues to at least the Planning Commission, if not the City Council. But then there's what issues? What issues do we bring? And can we bring anything? Can we bring everything? When I think about this will be my last comment, well, for the moment. When I think about everything that I've read and everything that we've discussed, it seems to me that what we ought to be doing and not doing is actually being proactive in reaching out to the community, Citizens Advisory Committee, potentially holding town halls, potentially sending a representative to homeowners associations, not door to door, because that would take a lot of time and effort, resources, but rather maybe, I don't know how many homeowners associations there are in Troutdale, but if everybody took one, and I'm not saying I'm suggesting that that's what we'd be responsible for. I'm just saying that we hold these meetings. We've not brought anything to city council, and they've not brought anything to us, and neither has the planning commission. In how many months have we been meeting over this? Maybe almost a year. We've been talking about this a year. The question is, well, what would we be doing otherwise? Nothing. I mean, I think that we could just basically adjourn this committee until something really does come up. Otherwise, it seems to me that trying to figure out what this committee is supposed to be doing from a proactive standpoint would give us some reason to be in existence. Thank you very much.
Yes, I got Chris, then James, then Shelby.
I guess I would say that for the most part, I think I actually kind of agree with what Kevin's saying. I don't think it needs to be in the language, but perhaps it's something we should think about doing to get more input from citizens, because that's one thing that I guess has been kind of discouraging to me is there's never any citizens here that aren't committee members. I don't know if I can get input from the citizens if we're supposed to be a citizen committee.
I guess question that I had, I think was a follow-up on that. Since I'm new to the committee, what is it correct that in the past year or in the past calendar year, is this committee not taken an action on some specific issue?
I think historically, we have had many issues and projects brought to us, and that has slowed up immensely in the last year. And I know people that have been on this committee for longer can mention
Has there been anything in the past year?
Not in the last year.
So then I second that concern, like if we're just having a meeting and discussing things, talking about a role, but not actually taking action on something that is important to the citizenry, then I think we've failed ourselves and failed the city.
Shelby, I was just gonna say what Twyla just said, is that when I first got on the committee, we had master plans to review. We did have a lot of work to do. And then it those all got passed and dealt with, and then it got slower, and then we had we had Paul bring up some issue to us that we thought he had to go directly to the council. We couldn't deal, and that's what started this whole process, and we've been doing that it's coming up close on a year, if it isn't totally. I don't know, it seems like it was last fall that we started this process. So you're right, we haven't really done, but we've been researching our role. So I guess it's good we didn't have some other things, but we really haven't done anything to really help our citizens.
Yes.
And that's unfortunate, but there hasn't been anything come up. So that was my point, sorry.
Thank you. Diane?
Ever since I've been on the CAC, we've been very active. Prior to that, I've heard that if there was no issue, there was no meeting. So sometimes if there wasn't something before the committee that was tasked or assigned, then there just wasn't a need to, or purpose, a reason to come as they did it back then. I'm proposing that we do not, we talk to Ray, then prepare, but not bring this to council until there is the new council. And the reason I'm saying that is because there's so many positions that are open. I think it would be nice to educate them on this, and then we could proactively ask them to give us issues. We could kind of give a little bit of history about, timelines, about what's happened in the past, and how we've enjoyed, the different topics or whatever that we've had, that we were assigned, and that, but I'm highly recommending that because that way it'll be fresh in their heads, and it doesn't preclude us from doing tasks or work between now and whatever that opportunity to present to a new council would occur.
Yes.
Okay, so two different things again. So trying to hear what Kevin and James are saying, and I don't know if I entirely disagree. I mean, in the past year, like, granted, I don't necessarily like the direction that our committee was going for a little while either, because we weren't having a lot to do, and for a while we were canceling like every other meeting, but I think probably at least a portion of that was everything getting messed up with COVID, but also I could be mistaken, because there's some things I'm still not clear on with the committee myself over the time that I've been here, but it's pretty rare that we have from what I've seen, it's pretty rare that we get something direct from council. Like, I only remember maybe 1 or 2 times where we were directly asked to do something from council. Granted, I didn't care for their response, but that's a different matter. So I guess in a way, I feel like we're working towards kind of like a new beginning where we kind of start over by defining ourselves and getting work to do, that kind of thing. So I don't think what we're doing is, stupid or pointless. And the other thing is, actually, I do like what Diane was saying, it makes sense to wait till get the new council, because it sounds like there's lots of changes going on there. And I was wondering, was the intent to take this to Ray outside of our meeting, or should we invite him to a meeting again, since we did have him here once before? And
That's a good-
That's certainly a
could do that.
possibility, that would make scheduling easier.
Yeah.
Sorry, I mean, if we're waiting till after the election, that gives us a buffer to find a month that he can come by. Sorry, but
No, that's.
Thank you. James?
Maybe we can do these things in turn, but so I heard the proposal of waiting for the new council to be seated, which that does seem like a reasonably, pretty good idea, even though it's longer, but there's no urgency. So maybe if we just close on that but I think previously it had been discussed of just 2 people taking the proposal into Ray, during his business hours or something like that. I think for me, either is fine. I don't think it's imperative that it come here, but whatever people prefer. But maybe we just close on that let's just close on this first one in terms of review and then before the city council. Because then we have this other topic of like, well, what is our reason for existence? And that's kind
Meaning
of
of
a
life.
bigger topic, right?
Yeah.
So to sort of close the loop on active things for the committee to do, I would point out that active thing is pretty much the entirety of Section A in this code proposal. So what we do is actively reviewing how good of a job the rest of the city is doing as far as city and citizen involvement. I mean, that is the active thing. I mean, we are working with the other committees, we are working with staff. The whole liaison language with neighborhoods and individuals, that's not just one way, that's not just receiving. I mean, if we can get budget money to set up town halls and populate town halls to get information or to set up meetings with neighborhood or homeowners associations. I mean, there's some of the examples of CACs and CAP committees that we read. The committee was actively involved in setting up neighborhood associations. I don't think we necessarily need to go that far, but maybe someday in the future we do. We will. But that whole Section A is the active bit. I mean, that is the thing. Everything else is pretty much the other stuff. I mean, the bookkeeping internally and the getting stuff from city council and the reviewing from things like the town center plan, and stuff like that.
So I just want to circle back, because I feel like we have 2 things that are kind of on the floor that I think we may want to just quickly vote on, if that. So the first one is to hold off on taking this to city council until we get our new council in.
Quick question on that, though.
Yes.
Is, do we want to go so far, basically take it all the way up to the point, and I'm sort of looking at Dakota in this instance, take it all the way up to the point where we have the actual municipal code language and format ready to go to present to council as code change, and just stop right before the actual presentation to council and for review and adoption.
That's a very good, I mean, if you'd like, that's not a bad idea, because it's gonna be at least 2 city council meetings. Minimum, we have to hear it first, and then it goes up for actual vote in the second one. So, in order to make any changes to the Muni code. So that is work that can be done. I'm not entirely sure with Muni code, if it, how the staff report works, who puts that together, if that's something I do, or if that's, I don't make changes to Muni code. So that's a question I have to ask Ray or Sarah.
Legal might have to review it too, right?
That would be the ordinance that would change it. They would take a look at that. That'd be done at the time of when you draft ordinance and an ordinance that goes up for a vote. The ordinance was actually changing, and then this is what's going to be put into the ordinance is the legal language that changes the code. So that's work that could be done prior, and then we could talk right and see how far out are meetings anyway. And if we decide, we decide now to wait until we have a new one, but then we get an idea of, hey, this might not even get on there until there's a new one, depending on how far out. I don't think that's true, because I know there's a lot of stuff going on council, but we should be able to, if you want to do it now, we could probably get it there in the next couple of months before. So if you wanted to wait, that's not a bad idea, just wait till the first year, try to get on that first one, do the first agenda item for discussion, and be ready to go at that point.
Yeah. So anyway, sorry.
Okay, so, should we make a motion to hold off? Or are you guys feeling like you wanna just kind of table that? Or do we wanna vote? Yes,
This is Frank, until we get the details on how far out, I'd like to table it,
okay,
from my point of view. It's like, in the way, Adrian, I think the way you said it is really good. What we have is a policy, is it Kevin? I think it was Kevin that mentioned it.
mm-hmm,
What we need to work on are action items. And I don't think we need to wait to do that.
no,
So the concept of waiting until, December to start on figuring out an action item list, just my notes say, you have to look at it from what is council gonna give to us, what we're gonna do for outreach, and then what we're gonna do for bottom up. Those are all the things that Adrian mentioned as well. So I don't think we have to stop because if we're just waiting for the election to get done, then why bother having a meeting until next January or whenever?
Yeah.
go ahead.
I understand that, but I guess what I would say about that is that I think there are some things we can do between now and January. I don't know that this is necessarily something where we need to have a vote, but I would say just at this point, let's, invite Ray to come back so we can show him what we've got, get his input, continue to work on it and get it ready for council, so we can refine it before we go before council.
And I think that was the second thing we wanted to establish, I had on my list, is we had talked about us bringing us to, but I'm hearing now from the group that I think most people would like us just to do it together and invite Ray here. Is that what I'm hearing?
No?
Okay, I'm seeing yeses and no's.
No.
Okay,
I'm indifferent.
I am Switzerland also. Yes, I am.
This is Diane. Personally, I think you guys can do that because more presentation can be done, there more discussion at a later time. But when I said also, there will be a new council, doesn't mean we can't get on the schedule.
Right.
Okay, that's something I want to do too, so that we proactively, Ray will know what the schedule is, it's coming up, and then that way, that is being worked on as well.
Perfect.
And then to follow up on what Frank said, even though it may not be until December, January, we can still meet and move this forward, building out what we talked about with Woodrow.
Last thing,
Yes.
Diane. The other thing too is, meanwhile, we could possibly ask for special guests that come here to give us information or give us presentations that are something that are pertinent to things coming up in the city. Like I know we were going to maybe see Chris Stanton. We were going to maybe get to go to the port And then there's all these great discussions because of this, runways, what's going on, what the port has envisioned, what they have planned, how much flight is occurring, what size planes, do we have potential for, FedEx or whatever, will any of those groups use, but just whatever. So the more information that we get, then we can figure out maybe some issues that we'd like to tackle or to, to add to our list at later times. So I think special guests and getting informed for the citizenry is a really good thing. So we can make this fun and educational for ourselves. Meanwhile, in between being tasked or whatever else we're doing.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Because I know that's kind of what was very fulfilling for us in the past is those special updates, and we had a lot of special guests come and present to this. Almost every other month, we would have that happen, yeah.
Dakota,
Mm-hmm.
this is Kevin Minkoff. The land use plan is now due for a complete overhaul revision. It expired, well, it's been 10 years since it came out in 2014, but I presume that, well, is it correct to think that we're waiting for the change in city council before that land use plan is going to be worked on and revised?
No, that's not we're not waiting for a change there. What has been basically waiting on is bandwidth within staff. Staff bandwidth, we need to start that process internally and then bring it here for feedback and discussion and, review.
That'll be big.
And yeah, that's a larger lift for staff. And currently, there's a couple code amendments that are going through, or that we're working on. So basically, the goal is, I believe, after the first of the year to bring that. Has nothing to do with the council, just more, some of those code amendments should be getting wrapped up at that point. So then there's more bandwidth. Also, regular case file workload drops usually during the winter. Because I think we'll do development during that time. So that's when then we'll start looking at the long range plans, as you mentioned, and get those updated because they do need to be updated, and that is, as you know, a direct relation with CEC.
And is that a couple of month process for staff?
To get it prepared, yes. And then that'll be multi-session work sessions
Right.
here.
So the CAC should prepare to be working on that, let's say in April, May of next year?
That's a pretty good time frame.
Thank you.
All right. So I feel like we have a plan, and we have some specific topics to bring to our meeting. Are you guys feeling like we can close? Oh, please.
Can I just make one quick
Yes.
last comment? So I was thinking about one of my prior comments where I mentioned, I was talking about kind of the history of how things have been going here, and I made the comment about feeling discouraged due to a lack of citizen attendance and stuff, and I wanted to just say that was not to exclude Paul, because he's been fairly faithful in attending these. I just think it'd be good to see more citizens.
Yeah. Thank you for that. All right,
Do we need a
well.
motion, Chair? Do we need a motion to move this forward then with everything we discussed?
That had been my plan. Do we need to make a motion? All right, we will. Everybody in favor?
I don't know, you got different ideas of people that don't seem to.
So we're gonna talk to Ray.
Yes.
Yes.
We're gonna talk to Ray, and then we are gonna get a tentative date. We are gonna talk to, review our PowerPoint, and then we're also gonna get more information on, the change to code and kind of what a good way forward, would be to do that most efficiently.
And to get put on the schedule
Mm-hmm.
and
That was
to
right.
add building out the mechanism that Woodrow talked about to our future meetings.
Mm-hmm.
Action item.
Yes.
So moved.
All right. So it looks like we are on to staff communications.
Okay.
He's adding to the grocery list, was it?
Yeah. So at the last meeting, we had I brought just a little tidbit about to think about the trees on 257. So what we're looking for there is just kind of two main questions. And it was, we're working on a potential IGA with the county for the vegetation that grows along 257. It's how our community code is currently written, is as the property owner's responsibility to take care of the vegetation that overhangs sidewalks, street trees, such like that. So, and as we know, 257, if you're in any of those homes, it's hard to get out there to do the sort of maintenance on it. So we were trying to add that to a potential IGA intergovernmental agreement with the county, because I believe our current IGA is coming up, so we're working on updating it. And with that, basically what we're looking for just feedback on from this committee is what areas should the county focus on 257? And then where are some of the areas of largest concern? So I know this sounds similar, but areas are, like the areas of concern are physical locations. And then other areas are, what is it, a time frame that they should really focus on? Like what parts of 257 are the worst during what parts of the year? I know we talked last time about, obviously, during the snowfall and the ice is a big issue. That's something that's already being put in. That's something that our public works team is working with them, because they're supposed to be doing that. So trying to figure that out. So I was just wondering if there's any sort of feedback on, if anybody had time to kind of think about that over the last month. And if there's any feedback.
Quick clarifying question. You mentioned debris, but then you also mentioned winter storm. Is that cleanup from winter storm, or is that snow and ice removal from the sidewalks?
Snow and ice removal from the sidewalks, I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe that's something that, obviously it's an issue. And typically it's your property, the sidewalk in front of your home is your responsibility to keep clean. 257 is the county's, and that's been an issue, so we're trying to, in the new intergovernmental agreement, try to have a little more weight on the county to do that.
Okay.
Because especially this last year, we had a lot of complaints.
Woodrow.
Woodrow Troutdale resident. So last, I don't know, it's been a few months, I took the bike up and did a little slow roll up 257. And this was during, we had the conversation about the shrinking of the lanes, Bozeman County. And just took a really slow, hard look at that whole, up the hill and all the way down, all the way up into right on the community college. And there was still ash and salt and other debris on the sidewalks from the snow removal efforts. And you could see where, you know, if they'd scraped it, it was, the bike routes were still just cluttered. That's what we used for some of our comments to the council, because you could tell people hadn't been riding their bikes because of the layers of dust, dirt gone. Even after the rains had come through, it, you know, you could tell no one was riding their bikes in the paths or on the sidewalks. And then the sidewalks were totally, sections of them were, I guess, roads are frosty or something has made them hazardous terrain for some people, I imagine. But it's just the infrastructure of the road is, you know, they may be keeping the asphalt for the, you know, high capacity and the commercial vehicles that are, you know, frequent travelers and necessary for the route from here to 26. But they, we can't accept responsibility for the trees, the sidewalks, the bike lanes. They need to be coming in and sweeping or cleaning or flattening. This is just a bike rep waiting to happen.
discussion or thoughts on that area?
I guess, question maybe for Dakota, maybe you do or don't have the answer, maybe somebody else does. If the goal is to get the streets, and the sidewalks cleared of ice and snow and maintain the vegetation, who is it easier for the city of Troutdale to kind of have that weight with? Is it the landowner? You can say, hey, corporation that owns the, trailer park or whatever, you guys do need to take care of this and it's part of your responsibility. Or will that fall potentially on deaf ears with Multnomah County if they're like, well, we're too busy, we don't have staff, it's too big of a lift for us, and then 6 months later, it's still not cleaned up. Like, I guess in the function of trying to get it done, the question would be is, where do we have more leverage and who is more capable of doing that?
Yeah, that's a good point. So it's an IGA. My question would be, can we negotiate along those lines? It's like, okay, so you don't do it, then give us money to hire an extra maintenance guy that could do it.
So those are really good questions. In my opinion, the short answer is the property owner, because it's in our city, our meeting code. However, the reason why we even have the IGA in the first place isn't just necessarily that, oh, the county owns that road, it's they don't want us touching it. So we've offered, I believe, to just go out there and clean it, because it's, we've got so many complaints. We're getting the complaints, but that would be a direct violation of our IGA to go out there and trim the trees because they're street trees. So whenever they put them in, they have to come through us for a permit to make sure that they meet our requirements. However, they're theirs. They don't want anybody messing with them. It's their responsibility. Now, with that, it is harder to get them to do anything. As we've all complained, and again, it's not just citizens of Troutdale. I've heard this in multiple meetings with Fairview and with Village as well, having the same issues with the county. And they say, oh, we don't have enough staff, or it's harder to get out there. But it is written that you will maintain these planter strips, you will maintain these street trees. So I think that's why now we're trying to figure out a way so we don't have to put the burden on the citizens that have nothing to do with it within the city in that regard. Because right now, that's how we would go about it, is it's written in our Unicode that way. You have to get out there, walk around all the way around the fence to where it is, and clean up any of that vegetation. But if we can get it to have more weight in that IGA, that's kind of what we're looking to, is that something that sounds appealing to the citizens? And then is that like where those kinds of areas, it wouldn't be along the entirety of 257, because a lot of it's, some of it's corporate. So that's obviously property owners or the county itself. It's more for the homeowner's burden. We're trying to see if we can get it away from the homeowners on 257 and more on the county. If I understand that correctly from what our director mentioned.
So then I'm assuming that there are some levers to pull, like Frank mentioned, like is, hey, well, you didn't do this, so you're gonna, we're not gonna pay this much in taxes to you or whatever that is to cover this? Or is it more just like, we're gonna word it really strongly this time,
I think it's, I don't think they're the leverage or, we're not gonna, there's a financial type thing. But that's kind of the hope, is something along those lines. Like, fine, if you don't do it on, if we, we get complaints or we reach out to you and it's not done in X amount of time, then we're just gonna do it. And that has to be written into the contract.
I think that, I'm sorry, Frank Stevens, Troutdale. I think that gives us leverage coming at it from that angle with the county. And that applies to Troutdale Road as well. I mean, that's another county road that is kind of similar, where you have growth coming over and homeowners have to go all the way around a fence and potentially deal with the issues of the sidewalk and stuff like that. So, yeah, I think it gives us a wedge potentially, and it could change outcomes, or at least give us more than a heavy, statement that says, we're really angry.
I think it's Woodward Trail. I think that another important piece is to really tie this to the ongoing street maintenance. It's not just the trees. I mean, trees is just one part of this. It's the sidewalks. It's the light lines. The whole shooting match. We hate to throw a lot of focus on trees and still see nothing being done on the sidewalks. and bike routes. So it's, I think that if we have a strategy in place or come up with a strategy that'll address all components of that, maintenance, maybe that's the thing to look at is an IGA first with this, then look at the bike paths and sidewalk, but I need to break it up into smaller pieces and not get what you're doing.
Yeah. The other piece that comes up for me is, so when I think about this, so there's a couple different scenarios, right? There is the tree that's the county's and on the side, but then there's also the homeowner, right? And the piece that comes up for me is just that kind of core value of justice for other core, because that's just the one corridor. And it's great that's happening for them, but I'm sure there's other areas also. I can think of a few within our community where people do have to get out and go around. It's not quite as busy, and there are other things. But just if that comes up in the future, like, why is this being handled for them? But I'm kind of in the same situation. Just might be a potential thing that could come up I could think about.
What you said just brought up, maybe the IGA has to have something time-based or seasonal or something that is very fixed, and it's like, okay, in the spring, you're cutting back the vines and da-da-da-da and the tree branches by this date, and then by fall, we have new vegetation by then. Something, ties in with what Parks does and their seasonality and their programs and their, they add new things, you take new things out, so that it works with what we're doing with all of Troutdale. I just, for some reason, the time frame of it resonated with me. I think it's that.
Are you needing to take back anything solid from us as far as a recommendation, or is this more
No,
just
this
like
is what,
throwing
open
out?
discussion. I'm writing down like notes and stuff, because this is really what we're looking for, because I'm not entirely, I know the director's been working on this along with our, with Travis, our parks, or not parks, our public works director. So I think we're just kind of looking for more, what are you all as citizens, being the citizens advisory committee, hearing from others, what are your concerns? So we obviously hear the complaints mainly about snow and ice buildup. Like I do hear that every year, and we're always like, type thing. So this is really good because these are things that I'm going to get the director to discuss and see how they can get the wiggle room, or where they can put these in. If it could be, that's a good question about other areas rather than just the one corridor, or is this stuck to just a corridor? I'm not entirely sure, but that's something that is a good topic to bring up. If we're going to rewrite it, can we rewrite it for other areas? Because we do get a lot of complaints also about Troutdale Road. The sidewalk doesn't go the whole way, but it does get overgrown with blackberries all the time. And I know our code enforcement officer is out there all the time during the summer talking to people, say, hey, you gotta get out there and do this, you gotta get out there and do this, you gotta get out there and do this.
I just remembered something else, was, I got an old girlfriend of mine, and apparently the service that was cleaning her trees up for the main road she lives on, they basically blocked in her driveway. And it's a contractor that the city was using. And it was just one of those things that her driveway faces a major road, everybody else's, is an ancillary road. But they just go along the little truck as they're trimming everything, and there's, for whatever reason, they parked and blocked her driveway in the alleyway. And I'm just like, I've never seen a truck thing to do that, right? Maybe we should have something to make sure that it's taking into consideration traffic patterns and access to other roads as well. But we're really trying to think about this holistically and give them a lot to think about.
Diane, we have a lot of affordable housing in G7, and they're going to be doing home board. So it's vital that they have adequate transportation and safe ways to do that. So between Troutdale Terrace, and then we have the mobile home park, and then we have apartments, and it's the way to school.
There's bus routes, there's bus stops that need to be taken care of as well.
There's no crosswalks on that whole section.
Yeah, so, and that's something they gave us. They intended to put home board there, and we're gonna do our best to make this be a community and work that They need to be able to get where they're going. The mobile home park too has limited parking. Troutdale Terrace, I don't know what their situation is, but I think that's considered affordable housing as well. And I do see people walk up and down the road.
Adrian, and at the very least, I mean, there probably needs to be some sort of easy contingency built into the IGA, because using Home Forward as an example here, I mean, for at least the next 18 months or so, I mean, that whole property is gonna be in transition, and somebody will need to deal with snow and ice removal on that stretch of sidewalk that they front on 257th. God knows the county didn't do anything with it and they own it outright. But I mean, having something in the IGA, well, where if the county doesn't take care of it, or somebody doesn't take care of it, then somebody will, somebody can, at least by process.
Great, this is exactly what we're looking for.
Yes.
So thank you for that. Any other comments before I move along?
Proceed.
Just a couple other minor updates. This Friday is the Troutdale Art Walk. So it's the last outdoor first Friday. It's supposed to be hot, but I've not heard anything about canceling as of right now. There will be a table there from the county. They're going to be there to speak as part of their public engagement for their Safe Streets for All project that they're working on. So this is part of their, right now currently in their their community engagement phase, so they're going to have a table down there to speak with the citizens of Troutdale. It's countywide, basically, to try to increase safety measures on streets for ped, bike, and scooter. As they're also going around to schools and talking to schools about increasing safety classes, things of that nature. So if you are in the area, go see them. It'll be Mary Jo from the county. She's very nice. She's looking forward to talking to everyone. We just had an application submitted as a type 2 site development review for an ADU. So it's very straightforward. It's in their back portion of their house. Not asking for any sort of variances, so it's very straightforward type 2. The notice, or the complete letter went out today, so that means the public notice will be going out next week. And then, let's see, I have the forward-looking calendar. Next month, either next month or the month after, our director, Eric Palmer, will be coming, and of course I'll be here as well, to discuss, have an update and a presentation on the downtown parking study and the Sandy River shuttle study that were just completed. So I'm not sure, Marley may also join. I know she was part of the both of those studies that she was working on. So, but there will be a presentation here and then also at Planning Commission. For both of those studies, just kind of an update on what we learned. I would love to answer questions, but I was not involved in that study, so I'm not sure what it's going to look like yet. So the presentation hasn't been put together yet. Planning Commission, not this month, but next month in October. There is the Type 3 variance and site development review for the Cherry Park Plaza that's going in off of 257. This is the one that was submitted quite a while back, but they asked for a continuance at the last meeting due to, they were waiting on some feedback for some application they submitted to the county regarding access. So we could not move forward with our project until we received the information from the county for their project.
That's one over here somewhere, right?
Yeah, it's right across from Cherry, it's like right across from Cherry Park. Oh, sorry, Cherry Park, Cherry Park Road, so it's right there.
Are those the row houses, or is that the
Yeah, so
apartments?
it's two buildings with a total of 15 units. They're requesting a variance to reduce the northern building side yard setbacks by 25%. So going from 20 feet to 15 feet. They also request a variance to allow a portion of the proposed outdoor, or the parking, to encroach into the rear yard setback. And they're also requesting a variance to reduce the size of the outdoor space on the upper level units by 30% from 60 square feet to 42 square feet, so little balconies. That is the assistant planner, Nick, so he'll be presenting that one in October. That's going to be a longer meeting because they are requesting so many variances for that.
So with smaller balconies?
Smaller balconies. And some background, that was a design suggested by a former director that didn't necessarily understand the code all that well. So when Nick received this, he'd been working with the applicant for a year to get it to a part, because initially it was a lot more variances. So Nick's been working with him over the last year to kind of narrow it down, see where there can be some wiggle room, and try to help him get this project moving forward. He would come in almost every Friday for the last year to go over the new sets of variants. So we're excited to have this one get to this point, get in there. I know the developer was also very excited moving forward with this. And that's all of the updates I have. Any questions?
I do. Was that on the east side of 257?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Sort of kitty corner from the high school, right?
Yeah, kind of, it's a little bit further down, to the side, a little more, I guess I'd say north, a little bit more north if you're on Cherry Park. High school's on your right. It's kind of a little bit, but it's somewhat kitty corner right there. It's a large open kind of field. There was a large tree in the middle of it. And it's kind of a weird L shape. So there has been a lot of public comment, so that's why I will probably be a large meeting. Most of them will be attending to discuss.
I have two questions. I guess one's a quick clarification. I think I missed something, so what's this L-shaped thing you're talking about?
So that is, I'll share my screen really quick so you get a better idea of where it's located.
Going on another Google map tour.
Yep.
But also, well, like, what is this L-shaped piece of land?
So this is where the proposed development is going. That'll be at Planning Commission in October. So it's this parcel here. So it comes right here and then goes down. So it's this. This would typically be what we would call a flag lot if this is their pole, but that's if they took access off there, but they don't have access off there. So it's just an irregular lot.
Go ahead.
Sorry. The other question I had is earlier you mentioned in a future meeting there would be a discussion of a study done on parking and stuff. Did that include the parking like right here?
Yeah, so it's for the downtown parking study. So it's all with, I believe it's this entire downtown area that was involved in that study.
Okay, so I was gonna ask if there was any more discussion on that because, I mean, I saw the concern and I see there's another business going in this building right here. And I just yesterday met somebody who's a citizen of the town and they shared with me a concern about that. So I guess for context, I live right at the top of the hill and this person's only like a minute away from me by car, so very close by. And thus they drive Buxton a lot, and they said there was a time where just people have been parking on the road, that they're driving down the road and all of a sudden someone just comes out across the road, probably where there's not a crosswalk, and I'm sure that's not the only time that's happened, so it seems like this is gonna become more of an obstacle for us.
And these kinds of studies are what we need in order to move forward with the larger discussion of our comp plan update. Next year, I can't remember what it's called, an economic, we have to do another study, I can't remember off the top of my head, which again will be brought here to help review. It's about a year-long type process that the staff will be doing. So we'll have to be doing that next year as well. There's a lot of long-range projects that we'll be doing, and that's what the studies that are completed now are what we need to move forward with these other larger types of studies to help inform that. And these studies also say this is a high crash area. There's incidents that occur with pedestrians, or pedestrian-involved incidents, I should say. So that's why these studies are important. Again, I haven't seen it yet, so I'm not sure exactly what kind of data, but I know it does encompass a lot of that kind of information.
Diane, I have a question while you have that map up. Where the big P is on the left of 257, I was made aware only because of the old, I don't want to call it old folks home, what was it? Okay, senior living facility, okay, thank you.
We all knew.
Okay, so, that is going, I only heard because there was this lovely estate sale where somebody got a whole bunch of toilet paper for 10 cents a roll. So that's the only thing I know about this now. But I heard that it's being converted to apartments?
It is being converted to apartments, correct.
Okay, here's my question. Well, I just didn't understand that because when something's come in, it's kind of like low impact. And then when it's converted to apartments, that could be, they have children, and then that extends into use of schools that are, our elementary school is almost full as soon as it was redesigned. So I'm just questioning how that, is that like same, you consider that same usage?
It is the same use. They did come in for a modification for their, basically too, because it's still living, it's a different type of use, but it's still the same, they're both permitted outright. So they did come in.
They were both permitted to begin with, zoning wise?
Zoning wise, it's permitted outright. I can't remember what.
Because my concern is if what's the proper name? Well,
Senior.
Senior living facility.
Senior living facility can turn into a more lucrative apartment complex. Yeah, I guess that's just a side concern that probably has no bearing on code, but,
Wouldn't the senior living facility have fewer parking spaces than an apartment complex?
Yes.
I would think so, and my son used to work there, and those people aren't very mobile and using a lot of, it just seems to be very different use.
So is it still like an assisted living, or is it?
It's market rate apartments.
Market rate apartments, okay, and that's Brookstone or something like that, right?
It
Will,
was.
go ahead.
I don't know how this factors in, but it's probably something that will come up at some point in the future. But I believe last year, the state legislature passed something that said that if somebody wants to take a commercial building and turn it into housing, they can do it without a code, like they don't have, the city can't say no. Like there's a way to take industrial commercial properties, convert them into housing, and there doesn't need to be a zone change. And that might be something that, if it's not already on the radar, that we should all be looking at, because it's probably gonna happen at some point.
Although I think the main driver there is like downtown office
Right.
spaces. I'm not sure,
But if,
you're not wrong, but I have a sneaky suspicion that we don't have the kind of commercial property in Troutdale that will raise those
Like,
kinds of development.
I don't necessarily have I haven't read through the code and don't understand it, perfectly, but I would be very much surprised if they weren't able to say, like, take Troutdale General Store, bang it into a fourplex and be like, sorry, as soon as you can. And that might be something that keep an eye on, because I'm pretty sure it's one of those emergency clauses that allowed the less parking and allowed the fast tracking and allowed the additional units, a duplex on a single family lot if you can fit it, like all that sort of emergency package that got passed. I believe that commercial one was one that was passed as well.
So that site that you're mentioning is zoned high density residential. So that's why apartment complexes are permitted in that zone. They came in for a modification to their parking standard, basically because what was approved was, X amount of parking spots for the senior living facility. And now, since it's apartments, they wanted to increase. So it's a modification to the approval. So you're just modifying that because the use is basically the same there, because they were in a senior living facility where they had staff, but they were basically apartments as it was. Because it was more of the luxurious style. So they were standalone, so they're individual apartments that just were for seniors. So they actually are increasing their parking spots from 71 to 83, and they're just reconfiguring
Thank you.
And this doesn't necessarily fall in, but you are correct, that is something that did get passed. So you could come in, but in our city, we just don't really have the issues. But that is something that was passed.
But technically, if somebody wanted to turn the general store into a fourplex, they could. Yeah.
It still is up to the discretion of whether or not that use is permitted. It still has to be permitted in the underlying zone.
I'd still knock on their door for ice cream. Oh, yeah, sorry.
Are you doing anything with Move Fitness?
So Move Fitness, let's see, I think it was about 3 months ago, said they would be open in 120 days. And that's all that I know. I know our director has been taking most of those phone calls with clients who have been frustrated. I know they have to be open in 120 days because all their building permits expire. And if they expire, they have to come back in and redo it all. Every road building permit. But I have not heard anything from them. I know our director has been the one that's been speaking with them directly. I don't think she's heard from them in the last 2 or 3 months.
So they're just slow?
I do not know. I know there was some financing issues, but I'm not sure if that's all been taken care of. Basically, it's gotten to the point now that we as staff have been told to stay out of it and let our director handle it along with city manager.
And they were, you said the 120 days, it was 3 months ago, so that's like 80 days now.
I believe the 120 days goes until the first-ish of October.
Yeah.
If I remember that correctly, I think it was the beginning of, so, right around that they said that, or end of June.
All right.
Anything else?
That's everything.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on to committee comments. I'm going to start with you, Kevin.
I don't have any other comments than what I've already made. So, thank you, Adrian, for all your hard work and the PowerPoint presentation. Appreciate it. And looking forward to something for this committee to actually do. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Will?
Yeah, just echoing that sentiment about Adrian's work on this. Really just want to take a moment to honor and appreciate him for that. It's going above and beyond. And in the many, many years I've been on this committee off and on, it's one of the examples of somebody really stepping up and taking control of a project and following through. And I just think it's really special. So thanks, Adrian. And then thanks again to Dakota as well for all your help and support. And nice to meet Jim and Frank in person tonight. And yeah, excited for another fall with you guys.
Victoria?
I'm gonna ditto him.
Amazing, short and sweet. Adrian?
Thank you to everyone for the support on the text and the presentation, and it is greatly appreciated. It's been interesting, certainly. Other stuff, I've been just, again, by sheer proximity, I've been watching the development of the Home Forward lot. Construction projects are fascinating, especially when it's happening right outside your front door. And just watching it develop and watching the slow process of building up the ramp for the access that they're going to have on 4th Street, which I still don't like, but it is what it is. And then I guess the last thing I wanted to say is I am personally very, very concerned about the way traffic flow patterns are being forced down here because of parking on both sides of the street. I mean, things are getting very pinched, real close to the intersection, and Second Street is a one-car road when Wayfinder is busy. I sort of wonder if Going Gaming is aware as to how little parking that they're going to have during most of the day available for their customers, different from the massive parking lot that they have now. So I haven't talked to him about it. I haven't been able to catch him lately, but I'm certainly excited to have them closer. But I mean, having a game shop downtown is going to be a good time. But yeah, access is going to be interesting. So yeah, that's it for me.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks everyone on the committee. And I think I mentioned this earlier. I was unfortunate to see a pedestrian getting struck by an automobile in Sandy on a pedestrian crosswalk. And convinced that that will happen on Troutdale Road if we don't put a proper pedestrian crossing there with warning lights, as there is further up Troutdale Road. So that's something I want to bring to the city council or whatever appropriate body would be, because they're, pedestrians have right of way at every intersection, but drivers are not going 25 down that street. And visibility is poor if there's cars parked on both sides. Not so much the problem in downtown streets. So I just like to see something done sooner rather than later. Perhaps a parking study makes that, paves the way a little bit. So.
Thank you. Chris?
I think I'll wrap this into just a short little spiel. So you've all heard of the good, the bad, and the ugly. I have some good and some bad, but not some ugly for this. So I'll start with the bad to get it out of the way. While I know that TriMet is not the responsibility of Troutdale, I just want to point out that they rerouted some of their buses and they're now on my road and I don't like it. But anyway, that's a different point. I know I kind of already brought it up, but I guess I would also share the concerns about just the parking and the nature of the roads. And I mean, yeah, it's just getting really bad over here. And it's nothing against Going Gaming personally, but just I don't like the idea of another business being in here because it's already messed up before that happens. And I mean, I appreciate the city's working on it, but I mean, it sounds like it's gonna take a while for the studies and stuff, and I don't know if there's time for that. That's kind of my thought. And now onto the good. Adrian, thank you for the work on the text for our description. Appreciate it very much. And thank you all for a good discussion, and I will look forward to seeing you all in October.
Shelby?
Thank you, Adrian, for all your work. Do appreciate that. Thank you, Dakota, for being here and supporting us. Welcome to I guess you guys were here last meeting. I saw you, but and then I was going to say, I know public safety loves to hear about stuff when you know about them. So I'm on the public safety committee. So I'm saying this committee can do it because it's a citizen advisory committee, but there is a public safety one too. So that might be a great place to tell us about that. And then public safety actually is launching a public safety survey this Friday at First Friday. So would love for everybody's input. Stop by the booth or look for it to be coming probably later on when we figure out sending it out. We're doing just a quick launch. So that'll be coming on Friday. So check out First Friday. And otherwise, thank you all. It's really great to see you all. It's great that we're all here in person. So thanks.
Right.
Ditto. Good. Thanks, Adrian.
Thank you to Adrian, thanks Dakota, thanks for this conversation. And number one online was Buxton. I have it right here. And the reason is, in just the last week, I mean, I'm so glad that the Wayfinder is doing well. And I know like Portland, you find every parking spot that you can to go to Salt and Straw, or do certain things where there's lots of development and it's mixed use. But saying that, as I was going down Buxton, I I thought I was being nice and letting somebody cross the street from the barber shop where that parking lot is. Bad mistake, because you have the people coming from the home forward, the people coming up, and I almost got them hurt trying to be nice and let them cross. And then also when I was heading from home, which is near, let's say Good Coffee, and then you're heading on Historic Highway West, when I was gonna go up Buxton, there were so many cars, coming at me, and then down Buxton, and those people coming down Buxton have no clue. I have to wait for those cars taking the free right. So I'm getting looks and honked at and just gestures, and it's like, okay, calm down. I'm gonna do what I need to do, but at the same time, creating anger does not work well for being calm and making good choices and decisions, and just, being patient and letting people do what they need to do. But they have no clue, and I go, oh, they have no clue. So that was new to me. I just figured that out with all the new traffic that we're getting, and the great businesses that we're getting in downtown and building up. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Was that Sandy and Troutdale that somebody got hit?
No, Sandy, the city downtown.
Okay, I'm sorry you went through that. And like I said, that was number one on mine, because I am concerned that that's gonna happen right in that intersection. Also, the guys coming from home board, I saw one guy who was trying to pull out in this big semi. He was looking quite angry, anxious, and that was another day. And I go, oh, why is he so angry? Well, they have to get in and out, and then they're getting frustrated. It's just, just kind of what's going on right now. So I don't know if that's no parking on Second Street on one of the sides for now, or construction's going on, but I just a little extra input on that. Yeah, that's all I have.
Thanks. Woodrow.
Thanks, Adrian. Great job, as always. Wonderful discussion. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Yes, I wanted to thank everybody. We had a really great discussion. I know many people are passionate about this work, and thank Chris for calling out the decorum standards, and it's always a good reminder. So thank you for speaking up and bringing that up. And thank you, Dakota, for bringing forward your information, always having so much to share, and hoping we can get a good guest speaker in the next month or two. And I love that idea of maybe somebody from the port to update us, especially with some of the concerns of what went on this weekend. So appreciate you all, and wondering if anybody wants to make a motion.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
All right.
I'll second.
Thank you, Victoria. Everybody in favor?
Aye.
Perfect. We will adjourn. Thanks.